follow that mode no more because I can do it a different way. Because think about they started using scripts in WWF.
Well,
I'm still calling it WWF.
Well, the reason why is, they went public, so they're not
corporate sponsors.
Yeah, they got sponsors and they got advertisers.
They've always had sponsors though.
Yeah, but it's different when you signing up to somebody saying I don't own shares, so I know what I'm getting.
When you go in public,
yeah. So they got that. So like a lot of times they'll have a writer, and if you're good, you can get rid of a writer. You can learn how to get your own stuff. You can write some stuff. They'll edit it and be like, what you know. But it takes a minute, and with WWE, it's a system. If you can't get down with that system, then and the politics is ridiculous. So, go to WWE, take a chance. I hope Vince likes you and actually sees something in you and pushes you, or go somewhere else and make your own stuff. Be your own boss.
Can we say like WWE is the mainstream wrestling, right? They're not the mainstream wrestling?
Not no more.
They were for a time. They were the only ones.
Yeah. Right now, I wouldn't say that they may be the biggest, but I wouldn't say the most mainstream because AEW
is the most mainstream.
No,
been around the longest.
People know about AEW just as much as they know about WWE.
No, okay. So when I say somebody's mainstream, that means the casual person knows about them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then yeah.
They're mainstream. The casual person, you ask anybody that didn't even watch wrestling in the 80s, you'd be like, you know who Hulk Hogan is? Motherfucker would be like, yeah.
You know who Stone Cold is, you know who The Rock is, yeah. Yeah.
So WWF or WWE, whatever, is mainstream because I don't know the WWE. I know the WWF. It was WWF. I didn't watch it when it changed. The last time I watched it, it was still WWF. That's how long it's been. When I watched it, because Albert, because his kids watched it one time, and I was that's all it took for me. Like, I was like, what are they doing on the mic? Like,
they
don't even sound cool.
Some don't, some do.
Now, mind you, this was like 7 years ago.
Okay, 7 years ago, it was a different. They were really on that PG stuff. So, and a lot of dudes was having whatever script they got. That's what they had to work with. I don't think it was a bad thing. Like I said, I think it was a good thing because at the end of the day, you make more money working with kids than you work with grown ass men.
Right.
So parents will go out and buy the kid whatever wrestling figure. An adult will be like, I want to buy it, but I got these bills. So,
hey, did you peep out that wrestling documentary where they talked about how back then when it was NWA and WWF, that NWA had catered more at that time more to adults than WWF did?
Well, yeah, I mean,
because Curtis, Uncle Allen, they didn't watch WWF. They watched NWA.
Well, NWA was better in a certain extent because they always honestly, WWE's Attitude Era came from WCW initially. Just because of how they did it, they were like, this is a better, the whole, instead of having these goofy characters, they started having more dudes who were based in real life. Like they used real kind of names like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash.
Well, no, WWF was not based off of WCW. It was based off of
No, I mean the Attitude Era. I'm
talking about. I'm talking about way further back.
Oh no.
Way further back. That's why I say Uncle Allen and Curtis and them. They watched NWA. Think about Uncle Allen and Curtis. These some beer drinking ass niggas, right? Mm-hmm. Barbecuing, beer drinking, and they watch wrestling. They didn't watch WW. They didn't watch WWF. They watched NWA. Everybody didn't get WCW back then because WCW was big back then too. Because but it was in Texas mainly. The only way you knew a lot about WCW back in the 80s was if you had the magazines, or every now and then you could catch them on channel 56, channel 62. You'll get WCW and they were based out of Texas, Corpus Christi. They were based out of Texas.
Oh, you're talking about that WCW? Okay.
Yeah. I'm talking about when I was a kid.
I know, but it's two different. You said it. I was thinking about NWA too. Okay.
No, I'm talking about the original shit.
Okay.
AWA with Abdullah the Butcher. You know what I mean? Where a lot of those guys that ended up in the NWA that started Sting and Ric Flair, a lot of those guys came from AWA. Some of those guys came from WCW. Even Stone Cold came from WCW and went to the NWA first. You know what I'm saying? But he was stunning Steve Austin, not Stone Cold Steve Austin, but he came from WCW. WCW. The
I
reason
did like
Kerry, he was high. The reason the Von Erichs were big because WCW was the fucking, like, if you got wrestling magazines, because my Uncle Paul, that's who put me on the wrestling. He got wrestling magazines all the time. So I used to be reading them shits, seeing them all the time because he always had them at the house. That's why we got on wrestling. Yeah. My Uncle Paul put me on it. So I was always watching it in the house. WWF became the shit. But at first, it was territory. It was AWA. WCW and NWA used to be the same thing, then they broke off. And then it would start being based out of, it started being based out of Georgia. It was always based out of Georgia, but they were kind of connected. Then it became NWA. Then you start having the Four Horsemen, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, Lex Luger. The original Four Horsemen is Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Lex Luger, and Ric Flair, of course. That's the original Four Horsemen. That's the shit we used to be, motherfuckers used to be yelling when I was in like 5th grade and in middle school. Motherfuckers would be coming down the hallway like, woo! Or be like, I'm styling and profiling. Like, we used to do that shit in school. That's how, like, it was big. You know what I'm saying? It was big. And you used to play. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We used to do our wrestling thing at the crib. Watch WWF all day, every day. So and then by the time you start getting older to understand it, that's when WWF started becoming really, really more popular. They started having, they used to have the Saturday night main events at 11 o'clock. Free. That's what started their pay-per-view. They started doing Saturday night main events at 11 o'clock because that's when they had all the main superstars, wrestlers. Yeah. That's when they would fight each other. You would have a match. But all during the weekends and shit like that, when they would come on, you know, motherfuckers would just fight some scrub, you know what I'm saying? Like a motherfucking Brooklyn Dodger or Steve, he used to be Steve Lombardi. They'll fight like them type of motherfuckers and beat their ass. Like, you'll see that all the time, and then you'll see one thing pop off. Then they start doing a Saturday night main event, which would pop off on Saturdays because you knew the main motherfuckers was fighting. But the difference between them and like the WCW and the NWA, their shit was all the time. The main motherfuckers always the thing that was going on. And I think that's what separated them when they did the Saturday night main event. But yeah, man. Bro, I'm gonna tell you, before you say what you gotta say, I'm gonna say this. Me and you don't have the same hip hop taste.
No.
And that's fine. But one thing I can say that you can't ever take from me, you're not gonna ever take from me. I put you on wrestling.
You did.
Because that was my shit. I had the WWF ring, you had the motherfucking NWA ring. Me and you had, I don't know which one of us had which, but I had Castle Grayskull, you had Skeletor Island, or vice versa.
I think,
we had that shit. So yeah, man.
I'm gonna tell you what saved me in wrestling. I'm gonna tell you what saved me from keep watching wrestling. When they got when they switched over to the Attitude Era, and it was getting real corny for a long time. I used to go watch the pay-per-view at Buffalo Wild Wings. So it was like literally being at a real event, minus the actual thing. But like going to the pay-per-view at Buffalo Wild Wings when they still had them there, it was life. It was you saw all the emotions, you saw the fans, like people dressed up. It was I ended up making a lot of friends off of doing that. But yeah, like I love where wrestling is now. I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people are like, oh, you know, the Attitude Era. But I always tell people that's a small era in wrestling. That's like a blip. That's like a 10-year blip of of something they caught fire and it was great, but it wasn't gonna last.
It's like you said, we romanticize stuff sometimes.
Oh yeah.
About when we, especially when you were younger, you definitely gonna romanticize shit about that. So, that's how I feel. Like I romanticized that time because that's at the time when I was younger, had fun. When I started getting older and wrestling started to change out, and even outside after the Attitude Era, it started to change because just my life started to change, and I had already stopped watching it a lot because I just stopped watching it a lot. But the Attitude Era did bring me back in at the age I was at because they took it back, and I was like, oh, I'm like, they're doing the shit that made my Uncle Allen and them watch it. They're on that shit but on this level of young men. Because you gotta, like Uncle Allen and Kurt and them, they wasn't old watching Ric Flair and them. They was like 25, 26, 27. They were still young dudes. And so it's like they was talking shit like that they were here. You go wrestling, you hear a dude talking about I'm styling and profiling. Let me tell you, I got the girls in the limo and all that shit Ric Flair used to talk. Motherfuckers feeling that shit, right?
I said
that's
that,
their era. But then when you go to the Attitude Era, now we in with hip hop and all of that shit.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers talking about suck it and I'll beat your candy ass. That's appealing to a younger man generation. But now we're moving into something different. Those guys grew up, so it wasn't gonna last.
Yeah,
but it's not. I never think there's nothing wrong with it because that's an art form and a thing that shaped my childhood. Had an influence on me, which I'm sure had a lot of influence, which we don't hear about a lot. A lot of black kids watch wrestling and were in the wrestling. It was big. I mean, you hear it with West Side Gun. Listen to his music.
Matter of fact, if you ever listen to Benny the Butcher?
All of them, they family.
Yeah. Well, they did a mixtape with all wrestling beats. That thing was. It was on
West Side Gun does most of his mixtapes.
Yeah.
It's all wrestling clips.
They did one.
And it's from back in the day, like but he like West Side Gun like your age.
Yeah. Who else does a lot of
maybe
wrestling?
2 years old.
Fab does, his mixtape, he does a lot of wrestling quotes because his son's big into wrestling. He like wrestling too, so a lot of his stuff. So you see a lot of that. Who else? The Migos just did track with Ric Flair. I can't believe Ric Flair's still alive. Ric Flair is alive and still living like he was in his 20s. I love it for him.
I ain't mad at that.
But I always say it's funny because people always talk about, celebrities, dying so young and so early, and it's sad. But I always tell people, they're like, don't you be sad the way? I'm like, not really, because I watch wrestling. My heroes be dying left and right at their 20s. Like you hear it, like it was kind of desensitized for me because I'm like, every other week, so-and-so just died. So-and-so just died. I'm like, people
been dying.
Yeah, but people
it's always been part of life.
But people like Nipsey Hussle and stuff like that, people take that really big.
I'm gonna say the cliche shit. I think it's social media. Because social media magnitudes everything so much because it's instant and it stays, but it only stays for a certain amount of time. That hasn't changed.
Well, okay, now you gotta think about it. In rap, you barely it was long periods of time back in the day when you would lose rap. The closest you had was maybe Biggie and Tupac, and then it went along. Yeah. Who else? Who else died early?
Yeah, Scott the Rock got shot in around 80, maybe 89. He might have been the first one that got shot.
But it wasn't
it wasn't as rampant. No.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
But wrestling,
it starts. Oh yeah, but these guys that were on drugs, hard drugs, steroids is not a.
But it was more than steroids. We talking pills.
Yeah, but then cocaine.
cocaine, heroin. Like some of your favorite wrestlers were drug addicts.